Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive and honestly, sometimes intimidating subject, academic research. I want you to think about conducting research exactly the way you think about designing and constructing a structurally sound building. If you don't have a solid foundation and a meticulously drafted blueprint, well, eventually the roof is going to cave in. But with the right tools and a solid plan, you can absolutely build something that stands the test of time. To set the stage for us, think about what educator Clifford Woody said. He stated that research comprises defining and redefining problems, formulating hypotheses, and carefully testing conclusions. So, what should we really take away from this? Basically, research is not just a random collection of facts, and it's definitely not a late-night Wikipedia deep dive. It is a highly systematic, methodical search for knowledge. It's disciplined. It's structural. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The fundamentals of research, 2. Crafting the research proposal, 3. Mastering the literature review, and 4. Designing your methodology. Starting with Section 1, the fundamentals of research, laying the groundwork. Okay, let's dive into this. Research isn't just one monolithic, one-size-fits-all thing. It's actually categorized into distinct types based on its specific purpose and the exact kind of data it seeks to uncover. Depending on what kind of structure you're trying to build, you'll need to choose a very different approach. Let's clearly contrast two major approaches right out of the gate. On one side, we have basic research. This is pure, fundamental research, essentially gathering knowledge just for the sake of knowledge. Think of a mathematician exploring abstract theorems without having any immediate real-world application in mind. On the flip side, we have applied research. This one is heavily problem-oriented. You're actively trying to find a solution for an immediate, pressing problem facing society or a specific business. We also have to decide exactly how we're measuring things, which brings us to quantitative versus qualitative research. Now, quantitative research relies on hard, quantifiable data and statistical measurements. It's exactly how a structural engineer measures load-bearing capacities in strict numbers. Qualitative research, on the other hand, explores non-numeric phenomena, perceptions, opinions, attitudes. This is much more like assessing the aesthetics, the flow, and the human feel of the building you're designing. Both are incredibly vital. They're just used to understand totally different aspects of the project.
Section 2, crafting the research proposal, pitching the build.
You know, navigating proposal documents can often feel like you're just drowning in paperwork, but the specific document you need depends entirely on the stage of your pitch. You might just start with a project concept note, or PCN. It's a quick 3 to 7 page document meant solely to get preliminary approval on your initial idea. Then there's the synopsis, which is a really concise summary, usually around 4 pages, summarizing a much larger plan. But the full proposal? That's your 10 to 20 page thorough strategy, complete with your entire budget, methodology, and timeline. That's the heavy hitter you need for the final green light. When you're actually writing that proposal, you need to follow a logical sequence. Look closely at step number 3, limiting the scope. A massive, super common pitfall for early researchers is making their project entirely too ambitious. It's like you want to build a massive skyscraper, but you only have the budget and timeline for a single-family home. Limiting your geographical or topical scope is absolutely vital if you want to get your proposal approved and actually see it completed.
Section 3, mastering the literature review, surveying the foundation.
Right away, I want you to completely banish the idea that a literature review is just a boring summary of old books. Think of it more like surveying the existing land. You're looking at all the buildings that have already been constructed to find the research gap, that empty, undeveloped lot where your brand new building is going to go. Literature reviews actually appear in 3 distinct contexts. Sometimes the review is an end in and of itself, a complete state-of-the-art update on a given topic. Other times it's a preliminary stage in your proposal to prove to your investors that your research gap actually exists. And finally, it's a vital component of your finished report, tying your brand new findings back to the existing world. But in all of these cases, it requires critical synthesis. You aren't just making a grocery list of what authors A, B, and C said. You have to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of their work as a cohesive whole. The really crucial point here is understanding your contribution to knowledge. So many researchers absolutely freeze up because they think they need to discover some absolute groundbreaking truth with a capital T. But drawing on the logic of Bayesian analysis, your research is incredibly valuable if it merely provides information that changes what we believe, or honestly, even just shifts our degree of confidence in an existing belief. You don't have to invent a completely new architectural style. Sometimes just proving that a specific type of brick holds up 10% better in the rain is a massive, highly valuable contribution.
Now, I want to pause for a second and ask a question that paralyzes almost all early career researchers at some point. What exactly do you do when you survey the land and you find either way too few sources or way, way too many? Well, if you ever find yourself facing this dilemma, use this framework. If you have too few sources, you need to expand out to an outer tier. Your inner tier consists of studies directly answering your specific question, but your outer tier includes analogous situations, overlapping parts, or even similar methodologies applied in completely different fields. On the flip side, if you are practically drowning in too many sources, you must aggressively filter. Focus on the leading authorities who are frequently cited by others, prioritize the most recent studies from high-prestige journals, and mercilessly cut anything that isn't highly, strictly relevant to your specific blueprint.
Section 4. Designing your methodology, framing and materials. This brilliantly illustrates the entire holistic flow of the research process. You can see how clearly defining the research problem and reviewing the literature naturally, organically feeds into formulating your hypotheses, which in turn directly dictates your research design and your execution. And notice how this loop even includes built-in feedback mechanisms. It is a highly controlled, step-by-step engineering process. A huge part of that execution is figuring out exactly how you're going to collect data. Often, this means choosing between a census survey and a sample survey. A census is a complete enumeration, meaning you literally check every single item in the population. Yes, it's highly reliable, but imagine trying to manually inspect every single brick in a major city. It requires massive amounts of time and finance. A sample survey, however, studies a representative portion of the population. It's cost-effective and much faster, though admittedly slightly less reliable. Because of that trade-off, most researchers rely heavily on smart, accurate sampling. To keep things from getting overwhelming, we can group all sampling designs into two clear buckets. Probability sampling means every unit has a known non-zero chance of being selected, kind of like a simple random lottery or a systematic selection. Non-probability sampling is based a bit more on the researcher's interest, convenience, or network. This includes things like snowball sampling or accidental sampling. Now, if you're dealing with a massive, widely scattered population, a multi-stage sampling process is your perfect compromise. Notice how it lets you drill down efficiently. You wouldn't just randomly select individual plots of land spread across a whole country. That would be a total administrative nightmare. Instead, for stage 1, you select broad clusters, like a few representative villages. Stage 2, you select subunits, like specific farms within those villages. And finally, stage 3, you select the final units, like the specific plots on those farms. It controls your costs while beautifully preserving your scientific rigor. So let's fast forward. You've collected the data, you've analyzed it, and you've written up your findings. You finally reach the epilogue. The epilogue is essentially the final walkthrough of our newly constructed building. You aren't just summarizing what you built, though. You're discussing the broader implications, honestly acknowledging the limitations and boundaries of your structure, and crucially, suggesting future directions for the next researcher. You are essentially pointing out where the very next building in the neighborhood should go. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Look around at the existing literature in your field. Really survey the land. What research gap will your blueprint fill, and what new knowledge are you going to build? You now understand the tools, the stages, and the methodical mindset required to pull this off. It's time to start drafting your proposal. Thank you so much for joining me, and I honestly can't wait to see what you construct.